Check out 5 easy steps to do some awesome weapon glow effects.
Spiking bits.
What's up, hobby maniacs? Rob Baer with you again today with a fresh tutorial showing you 5 easy steps on how to get some really easy blue glow effect that you can use for weapons, you can use for plasma engine glow here, lightning, anything you see here you can do. Heck, you can even use it for this cockpit effect that I did on this Eldar Lynx right here, just substituting out some black towards the back of this recipe and white out towards the edge here. But today we're going to focus on our boy Mr. Dragon Cat right here, Vandus Hammer Hands. We've been working on him. We've been working up this model through a lot of the tutorials over the past year here on the channel. We did some golds, we did some blues, we did some reds, we did dragon skin, we did the banner, and now we're doing the weapon glow. And this is a great 5-part tutorial. You can use it for, just about anything out there. These colors are universal, and I have added them to my hobby arsenal, and they're pretty much my go-to when I need a fresh blue glow. So let's jump right into it and show you the 5 easy steps to making blue glow. So the first step to getting that sweet lightning glow on that flat hammer end right there is going to be selecting the right blue. In this case, we're going to use GW's Cantor blue, and we're going to use the Airbrush blue because this actually, airbrushing is going to make it a lot easier in this instance. Now, if we were just using like something like the Liberators, the little guys here, I would definitely brush on the Cantor blue by hand first and then fade out like you're gonna see us do in this tutorial here. But for Mr. Vandus Hammer Hands, he's so big that I think it's probably better to get a nice fade across the surface area here of his Celestant hammer because it is so large, and we want to try to avoid all these areas here, these banners and things. So we're going to put a little bit of this into the airbrush pot right now, and straight, actually, believe it or not. So we're going to mix it up, grab our airbrush right here next to us, and we're just going to pour straight into it. And what that's going to do, normally you want to add a little bit of flow improver, possibly from Vallejo, for a lot of paints out there. But what this is going to do is it's already so thin that if you add any more to it, it's just going to get super watery, and that's kind of not what we want. Now, I forgot I actually ran out. I've used so much of this Cantor, I've run out. So I'm using the stupid GW bottle. I would have rather preferred there to be a decanter bottle or a dropper bottle, similar to what we're going to use in the next step right here. But we didn't get there, and I just realized I was out, had to pick up some more. So we're gonna back flush this real quick, and you can see it's a very thin paint that will just automatically start blowing right out of here very easily. Well, maybe I may take it all back, but it should, in theory, blow right out of here very easily. There we go. Now we got to pump it. Okay. So, like I said, we're just going to angle it in because of the surface area here. There's so much area. I didn't want to actually use the brush. So we're just going to get in here. We're just going to kind of down angle it towards the front of the hammer. Definitely lots of overlap. Taking it nice and easy. You can see there, it's looking good. That is awesome coverage straight out of the bottle from Citadel Air. Now the only converse side to this is that you're going to want to be very careful when you're using these paints because they are going to dry inside your paint pot. So you're going to want to wash and rinse this area in here a whole lot because they will dry out, and well, that will lead to other issues. So we're going to finish base coating all this, first fade here, and come on back in a second. So there's our fade all finished up, and we got it from the right angle, emanating from the front of the hammer. You can see it's a great fade. That was probably the best use of the airbrush in this instance right here. Now I rinsed the airbrush out because I didn't want that paint drying down in there, and unfortunately I didn't put that much in there because I don't have a dropper bottle. But the next step is going to be a lot easier. Now if you get bigger surface area here, you might want to think about mixing these colors that we're going to show you 50-50 and such. But with this amount of surface area, it kind of doesn't really matter. So we're all cleaned out in here. I'm just going to grab a little Lothran blue from Citadel Air. This isn't a dropper bottle, so it's good to go. We're just going to pour it right out of the bottle. Again, there might be some water and such in here. I'm going to give it a couple extra drops because we're going to mix in some Ulthan next. Never go straight Ulthan. That is never a good idea. Now, we've built up that really good base fade right there that you can see. So now we're going to go back the other way with it, right? And we're going to go away from the tip. So again, we're going to start up here and kind of pull back. A little bit different than what we just did, but still more of the same. Now this is also a really, really watery paint, which you're about to see here. It's definitely sputtering. Takes a little bit to work with these sometimes. There we go. Now we got the air pressure right. Like I said, out of the bottle, it's pretty good. You just have to remember it's gonna require a little bit more maintenance and upkeep than maybe what you're used to with your current airbrush paints out there. And they match the Citadel line. So I was a hater for a while, but then when I realized, hey, maybe I just need to like kind of treat them different and put them in dropper bottles, that seemed to have solved the issue for me. So again, we're gonna start at the top and pull back, and that's gonna give us the kind of the fade we're looking for at this point. Kind of like that, but starting to work back. Now you see a little bit of sputter right there, which is fine. That's gonna happen sometimes. So we're just gonna get in there and blow out the airbrush a little bit more, but you definitely see where we're going with this. And we'll give one more pass real quick just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. Okay, and we'll just do one more quick pass here just to give you an idea of what this fade is going to look like, and then come back and show you the next step. And now that all that's done, it's up to one of the last steps here. I guess we're step 3, where we're going to add in a little bit of the Ulthan gray into the paint pot here. But let's take a look at this fade real quick. Nice coverage all the way around, fading back, not too far onto the gold or anything in the back right there, so it's looking good. That's going to give us lots of room to hyper highlight with our edge work and get in there and get some of those like little star kind of triangle type things. So let's take a look at what we got in the pot here. Now I mixed up some Ulthan with just a drop of the Lothran right there, so it's going to be like a pastel-y type version, but it's still going to look fresh. Don't worry about that, and we don't have to do a whole lot of work here. This is just going to straight just hit it from the edges, and don't really kind of overthink it. You might even be able to just to fade it out going outwards from it. Again, Ulthan's such a great color. It's a heater color. It's definitely worth that and Celestia Gray. If you have any need for a gray in the Citadel line, that's probably where it's at. So we're just going to take it, we're going to fade towards the front of the hammer here. we're just pulling it back right there. You can see very easy gradient starting to form right there. Now we have to go in and hit all the planes from all the different angles, but it's not, we're not gonna pull it back much further than right where it's at, so you kind of get an idea for what the effect is gonna be like, and that's what you want to do, these nice controlled bursts. So we're gonna finish that up and come back and show you the next 2 steps to make this sick fade really come to life. And another one bites the dust. There you can see the fade is looking sick. Took about 2 seconds to do once we got in there and really knocked it out. Cleaned out the airbrush, but now we're ready for step 4, and that's just some hyper highlighting. Super easy. So I literally took the same color, the same airbrush paint ready, all sand gray, in my dropper bottle, put some on my palette. Then now we're just gonna grab a very fine detail brush and do some perpendicular edging to really set this thing off right here for step 4. So all it is, just come in here at an angle and hit your edges all the way around to taste, and you will really see that set this whole thing apart just with the solid line edging right there. So there it is. You can see all the edge work we've done, looking fresh, really popping out a lot of crisp details right there. Now step 4.5 is to put this down, let it dry, because this is all airbrush paint that's really thin. So we're gonna need to let it dry. We're gonna need to give it a matte coat with some lustreless from Testors, generally is what I use because of the humidity here locally. And then we're gonna come back and give it the very last step, step 5, glaze it all together. Now that we're all dried up and all matte coated out, it's time for that glaze, and none other than Gilliman glaze right here from Citadel. It's a great color that's very easy to cut down. We're not going to use it straight out of the bottle. We're going to actually take a water bottle palette right here, as we like to call it, put a little bit of it on it, and I'm just going to show you doing this, how it's going to look, because let's grab one of our wedge. I love these wedge brushes here. So we're going to take this straight out of the bottle, which you can see it's very full, but still, you know, it's a glaze, it's not a paint. But we're going to add a little bit of 50/50 water with Future Floor Wax to it, or Pledge with Future. You could use Lamium Medium if you want, and you can see here where it's making it a glaze, and thinned it down nice and neat here. I'm using this Broken Toad brush. I like these little wedge brushes here. They're great for washes. So now that we've got that, let's grab our hammer back, bring this in, and attack all these angles here. And there you can see, you're still gonna get definition, seeing those cracks right there where we just brought in that definition around those studs. But we wanna make sure that we go back and we pull all the excess glip glops and Klingons off of there, so that way it's not hanging out and makes a stain. So you can see where we went and hyper highlighted with that white edge. The glaze is going to bring it back and get into those recesses and kind of do the reverse. So we're doing a highlight and we're also doing a contrast at the same time, which is really awesome. So it's a neat little effect. Now this is going to take a while to dry as well. It's going to be glossy, so you're going to want to matte coat this down as well too after you're done. And then you should be good to play with on the tabletop at that point. So we'll be right back. I'm going to finish the rest of the model and let it dry some more. All right, so there it is, all dried out, looking fresh. You can see all the angles there. We got a nice contrast in all the cracks. It's nearly perfect, and we went back and made sure there wasn't any Klingons or drip drops or glip glops in there to get all runny and everything like that. So that turned out great. All the highlights are looking good. I'm not going to give it a matte coat quite yet, but I did want to show you this because it's epic recap time. Epic recap time. So in between steps, I actually recommend using the Model Master Lusterless Flat. This stuff's great. It works in a variety of humid locations and environments. It comes in a small can. It is a rattle can, but this stuff works. You just do not put whatever you matte coat in front of a fan because it will spider effect. That's the only caveat to it. So this stuff's great in all sorts of different types of humid weather conditions. Don't know about the cold or anything like that. Now, to recap what we did, we started with Cantor Blue and we airbrushed it in because of the surface area, so that was awesome. Then we mixed in a Lothran Blue as our second step with a little bit of Cantor in the pot still. Again, up to Ulthan Gray with a little bit of Lothran Blue in the pot still, and finished it off with some hyper highlighting of Ulthan Gray at the very edges, and then a Guilliman Blue glaze with a little bit of, well, a little Future Forlax mixed up here in a Vallejo mixing bottle. So those were our basically our big 5 steps today. Now you can, expand on this. You can do lightning effects. You can do all sorts of other crazy different things right here, but the basics are still the same. You want to do your fades with the airbrush, then you want to come in and do your hyper highlights, and finally glaze it at the end. Now you can see the hair here is the same color, and I did all that by brush because I wasn't able to airbrush it because of all the gold trim right there. So sometimes you can use the airbrush, sometimes you cannot use the airbrush, but don't be afraid to use the airbrush when you can and use it well to your advantage. Now, if this was like a 40K weapon or something like that, and you had plasma coils, you would want to go in there and hit all those edges. The hyper highlighting is what takes the most amount of time, in my opinion, of any of these projects right here. So step 4 technically did take the longest amount of time, although I think drying time probably killed us on this one right here. So that was a fun little tutorial. Now we got our Dragon Cat is looking fresh. Get ready to call down the Sigmar Lightning right here. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to be the very first to like and comment on our posts, and head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.